Asmat Gurubhyo Namaha, Asmat Parama Gurubhyo Namaha, Asmat Sarva Gurubhyo Namaha. So today, the first thing, we had a question by someone about the nature of Guru Parampara. The last time we had a discussion about the Sri Vaisnava Parampara, and there are many different paramparas. There are many different Vaishnava sampradayas. A sampradaya means, the word sampradaya in Sanskrit means tradition. The word parampara in Sanskrit means one after another. It literally means one after another. Parampara. Guru Parampara means a succession of teachers. Now there can be different types of Guru Paramparas. And there are many, many bona fide Guru Paramparas. Probably some of you have heard that there are in Kali Yuga only 4 main accepted bona fide Paramparas. The scriptural statements from Padma Purana, which apparently say that there are 4 of these Vaishnava Sampradayas only in Kali Yuga, and apparently that is supposed to come from Padma Purana. Those statements were made by Baladev Vidyabhushana, who was a Gaudiya Vaishnavacharya, in the 18th century, mid-18th century. And yeah, just unmute if you need to say anything. Okay. So, and he made this statement in a book called Prameya Ratnavali. Now, do we accept that statement? Does everybody accept that statement? No, everybody does not accept that statement for a few reasons. Number one, we can't find those verses in any extant edition of Padma Purana. So when somebody quotes, let's back up a little bit. What are the proofs of right knowledge, or what is our epistemological stand as Vaishnavas? So persons who are Vaishnavas, they accept pratyaksha, or empirical knowledge. If you can measure it, right, we accept it. They accept anumana, or logic, or inference. If you can deduce it by logic, right? We see smoke on the mountain, then there's probably fire there, right? By inference, by logic. And Shabda. Shabda is the statement of an authoritative person or scripture, right? Which we usually say Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. So if the Gurus and Sadhus, the holy men and the teachers, they get all their knowledge from the Shastra, from the scriptures. So ultimately, it comes, Shabda, the proof, or pramana, the word pramana means proof, ultimately comes down to, if we can't prove it empirically, if we can't prove it by logic, then if we have a scriptural statement, because sometimes, for instance, we have a description of the spiritual world. None of us have been there. None, if you go there, you never come back, So if there's why should we accept somebody's idea? If somebody says to you, well, this is what the spiritual world's like. Well, really, have you been there? Have you seen it? Oh, no. Well, then logically, is it like that? Oh, no. Then the only way to understand it is by understanding that there's a verse in the scripture that says, and the verse, for instance, in the Rig Veda, it says, Vishnu yat paramam padam. Vishnu is in the highest place. So Lord Vishnu is in a place called Paramapada, according to the Rig Veda. The Rig Veda is a Veda, Shruti. There are different levels of scriptural proof. The Vedas are the greatest level of spiritual proof. We're going to get to this because actually Pillai Lokacharya is going to describe this in his book, Sri Vachana Bhushana. But anyhow, so we know from that scripture, or from that authoritative saying, that there's a place called Paramapada, and it's the highest place. It's the highest spiritual place, and Lord Vishnu resides there. And that is stated in the Vedas. And they're the oldest scriptures known to man. So if we follow Vedas, if we follow the Vedanta, and there's reasons to follow the Vedanta, some people don't, Buddhists don't, Atheists don't. Obviously, there are some people who don't follow the Vedas. But as followers of the Vedanta philosophy, or of a type of Vedanta philosophy, who read the Upanishads and the Vedas, we accept Vishnu Yat Paramam Padam, that in Paramapada, Lord Vishnu is there. So that's the third type of proof. So we have empirical knowledge, we have logic, and we have scriptural statements or authoritative statements by people who have read the scriptures, like the gurus and sadhus. Okay, so Lord Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, which is an authoritative book, it's not Shruti, it's not Vedas, but it's Smriti. It's like the Vedas. It's also called Gita Upanishad. It's considered to be part of the Mahabharata, which is an itihasa, which is a history, and it's considered to be very authoritative. Some people say it's the Bible of Hinduism. In there, he explains about this Guru Parampara, succession of teachers. So let's get to this question. The question is, please describe what a Guru Parampara is like, what a Sampradaya is like. The word Sampradaya means tradition. It doesn't necessarily mean a succession of teachers. It means tradition. There's a tradition. There's a culture, there's a tradition. Guru Parampara is more exacting. So in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Evam Guru Parampara Praptam Imam Raja Shayo Vidu. That he tells Arjuna that I taught this knowledge that I'm teaching to you to the sun god, Vivishwan, Surya Narayana. I taught it to him, and he taught it to Ikshvaku, and Ikshvaku taught it to Manu. And in this way, there was a succession of teachers. So the first thing we have to understand is there are different types of paramparas, and there are different types of guru. The word guru means teacher. It just means teacher. So anybody that teaches you anything is a guru. But specifically, a spiritual guru is a person who takes you from gu, which means darkness, to ru, which means light. So somebody who opens your eyes, who enlightens you in spiritual knowledge, is a spiritual guru or a spiritual teacher. The teacher teaches the student. And just like any other subject, after the student learns, the student becomes qualified, and the student can then pass on the knowledge to his student or her student. So if a teacher teaches a person up to a certain level, to a certain standard, that is the standard that that person can teach to others. So we have Lord Krishna saying, I taught knowledge to the sun god. The sun god taught that knowledge to Ikshvaku, and then to Manu, and like that. So it was taught by each person to another person. And in that way, it was handed down and it wasn't changed. The same knowledge was given. That's the idea of a teacher teaching. When we go to any college, any school, we expect that. We expect that there's a certain syllabus, a curriculum. We enter at a certain time. We meet a qualified teacher. The teacher teaches us the subject, and at the end of the course, we pass. We may have to take a test, but we pass the test and we get a diploma, and we know that subject. We're considered to know that subject. So it's the same thing with spiritual. It's maybe a little bit different with spiritual things, of course, because there has to be realization also. There's simply book knowledge, and there's realized knowledge. There's what we understand in our heart. The guru is also within us. The spiritual guru is also within us as the Paramatman. Lord Krishna also is there within the heart. There's the soul, and there's the super soul, the Paramatman. And Krishna also says in the Bhagavad Gita, from me, all knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness comes. So when you forget something, that's Krishna. When you remember something, that's Krishna. And when you learn something, and when you know something, and when you realize something, that's Krishna. Krishna is allowing you to do that. He's giving you the realization. So that's coming from the heart. So Krishna spoke to the sun god, and the sun god spoke it to somebody else. And he explains this to Arjuna, and he says, Evam parampara praptam. This is parampara. So one after another, the teacher teaches to the next person. So now this can be done in several different ways. We've already said it can be done for different subjects, but let's just take spiritual subjects. How can spiritual subjects be taught? Spiritual subjects can be taught in a number of ways. In ancient times, they had to be taught physically. Somebody had to come and sit near to the teacher. The student came and sat next to the teacher, and the teacher spoke to him verbally, or the student observed how the teacher acted and followed the example of the teacher. Just like in the case in the Mahabharata, there was a student called Ekalavya. He didn't actually meet his teacher, Dronacharya, who was a great archer, but just by watching him, he learned how to be a great archer. So he had to be close to Dronacharya in order to see him, right? The Upanishads, the word Upanishad means Upanishad, sitting close to the teacher. So the ancient system was you had to go sit close to the teacher. Right now we're using Zoom. We're using a long distance methodology. You know, I'm trying to tell you something, right? You might want to try to tell me something back also, give me some feedback. And we're doing this over a different set of instruments than simply coming and sitting. Otherwise, you would have to come to Hawaii and you would have to sit next to me and we could have a discussion and we could talk about things and you could learn some things and I could probably learn some things from you. Right, so that's the ancient system, is you had to be physically close. Another way that you can teach is I could write a book. Before we had email and cell phones and video chat and all these things and video, before we had those things, we had the printing press. Before we had the printing press, we had handwritten manuscripts. And so the teachers, this is going to become very important when we talk about Pillai Lokacharya, because he was one of the first people to actually write down the secret knowledge of the Sampradaya. Because before that, it was passed by mouth, by word of mouth, and not to every disciple, not to every student, but only to a few, just to maintain the tradition. And so we used to have manuscripts. There still are manuscript libraries in India and other places where they have the ancient manuscripts. I've seen the printing press in Germany, where they printed the first edition of the Bible, and they started to use printing. So this is another way of giving the knowledge. So another method of giving knowledge, if somebody wanted to give knowledge, he could write a book, give you the book, and you can read the book. I can do a video and I can put it on YouTube and you can watch the video. I can make a recording. I can call you on the phone, freeconferencecall.com, and we can talk and we can discuss things over the phone. So there are so many technological ways to do that now. Even at the time of Bhagavad Gita, Dhritarashtra says to Sanjaya, "What did my sons and the sons of Pandu do on the Battle of Kurukshetra?" They were in another place. They were in Hastinapur. They were in Delhi. Kurukshetra is north of Delhi. But Sanjaya had the vision. He could see what was happening on the battlefield. So he was able to relate to the king. And even though the king was blind, Dhritarashtra was blind, Sanjaya could relate all the things that were happening between Krishna and Arjuna and the other participants on the battlefield. He was able to relate them to Dhritarashtra. So Dhritarashtra was getting knowledge from Sanjaya. Sanjaya was getting a direct vision of what was happening on the battlefield in Kurukshetra, Bhagavad Gita. So there are so many ways to transmit knowledge. There are so many technically different ways, but the main way is from one person to another person. Now, are all these ways of transmitting knowledge dependent on the person being physically alive? No. Right now, we can read books by previous acharyas. We can hear tapes of people who have passed away. We can see videos and films of people who were not with us anymore. of great acharyas. So we can learn from those things. We can learn from the stories of their lives, which are called hagiographies, the biographies of saints. These are all ways in which knowledge can be passed down. All of these can be considered parampara. Now, getting more to the question, Ramanuja actually had, we're talking about Sri Sampradaya, Ramanuja actually had 5 gurus. Only one of his gurus was his Diksha Guru. What do I mean by Diksha Guru? There are different teachers. So one teacher is a teacher which actually gives a mantra. The main thing that the Diksha Guru does is he gives a mantra. So he's usually called the mantra guru, or the mantra teacher, or the mantra Diksha Guru. The mantra Diksha Guru, or just the Diksha Guru. And then some people, other people, they talk about a Shiksha Guru. The word Shiksha means teachings, somebody who just teaches. The two gurus of Ramanuja who taught the mantra, which means the mantras that in Sri Sampradaya, which are given at initiation, like the Astakshara mantra, Om Namo Narayanaya, and the meaning of the mantra, what we call the mantrartha, because you should not just know the mantra, but you should also know the meaning of the mantra, right, was given to him by 2 different people. The first person was called Periyanambi, or Mahapurna. The other person was called Goshtipurna, or Goshtipurna was the other person who gave him the mantrartha, the meaning of the mantra, like that. So he had these 2 gurus. One was a Diksha Guru, one was a Shiksha Guru. There is a rule in scriptures that says that one should only have one Diksha Guru. So one should only have one guru for a particular mantra. So one might have different Diksha Gurus for different mantras. So for instance, somebody like coming from an ISKCON background, somebody might say, I took Harinam initiation, I took Diksha of Harinam, and I received the Hare Krishna mantra from my guru. But then my guru died, or there was some reason why I couldn't take the next another initiation into another set of mantras from that guru. So I took from another guru. So that guru became my mantra Diksha Guru. So they're both giving mantras. And then somebody might say, and then I decided that I would become a sannyasi, a swami, and enter the renounced order of life. So I would take a sannyas mantra, a mantra for being a sannyasi. So one can have, according to the rule in scripture, and we can look it up and we can talk about it if people want to talk about it, but there is a rule that you shouldn't take the same mantra from more than one person. You don't need, if somebody gives you a mantra, you've got the mantra. Now, if you want to know more about the mantra and you want to know deeper philosophical, secrets and esoteric things about the mantra, you can go to somebody else. If your mantra guru, the Diksha Guru, doesn't have time or isn't in that place, or for some reason he can't give you the deeper understanding of that, you can go there. So you have a Diksha Guru and a Shiksha Guru. So you can have many, many Shiksha Gurus. It's unlimited how many you can have. People teaching you different teachings. But you're only supposed to have one guru for each mantra, right? And one guru can give you more than one mantra, but the mantras that you get from one guru, you shouldn't try to get the same mantra from another guru, because you already got that mantra. And it just makes sense also, right? Somebody tells me Hare Krishna mantra, I know it. I can then use it, right? Why would somebody then, the next person, come to me and again tell me the Hare Krishna mantra? It doesn't make sense. I already know it. So what does it mean, to take Hare Krishna mantra again? I already know it. No problem. Now, we can talk about different types of mantras and things like that. That's another thing. But we're just trying to get the idea of what does it mean to have what's called a Guru Parampara, or a succession of teachers. So we have these 2 different types of teachers. The question was, what the Sri Vaisnava Guru Parampara, the Parampara that we looked at last time. And remember, our Parampara is probably the oldest Parampara because it starts out with Sriman Narayana in Vaikuntha, Lakshmi Devi in Vaikuntha, Vishvaksena also in Vaikuntha. So we have 3 acharyas right off the bat up in Vaikuntha, even before coming to this world. I don't think any other sampradaya has that. And all the other sampradayas that start with the Kumaras, that start with Brahma, that start with Shiva, these are all created beings who have gained knowledge directly from the Lord, no doubt, but it's not from time immemorial. Whereas the Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya, we have to say, just objectively, it seems like it's the oldest Sampradaya because, Lakshmi is the eternal consort of the Lord. So she's eternally, the Lord Narayana is the first guru, Lakshmi is the second guru, Sri Devi, Mahalakshmi. Vishvaksena is the third guru. They're all eternally, in eternity. Whereas Brahma was a created being at a certain time, right? So his guruship dates back to whenever he started. The Kumaras also, Lord Shiva also. These are all not eternal beings. These are beings that are within this material world. So from the point of view of sampradayas, of spiritual sampradayas, the Sri Sampradaya, you can consider it to be the oldest sampradaya. Now, what is the relationship between all the people in a sampradaya, in a Guru Parampara? It can be different. There can be a Diksha Parampara, which means a Diksha Parampara would be like this. The Lord Narayana comes and he tells Lakshmi Devi the Astakshara mantra, Om Namo Narayana. She tells it to Vishvaksena. Vishvaksena tells it to Namalwa. Namalwa tells it to Nathamuni, like that. Or it could be shiksha. It could be precepts. It could be the meaning of the mantra, or it could be both, like that. So Ramanuja had different paramparas that he belonged to. We're perhaps those people who understand something about paramparas, they think, oh, you can only belong to one parampara. Why? If you can have more than one guru, you can belong to more than one lineage, right? Now, if you can have only one Diksha guru, that means you can only, for that particular mantra, you can only belong to one lineage. If you have another mantra, maybe you've got a different lineage for that mantra and a different lineage for that mantra. But for any one mantra, if you're only going to have one guru for that mantra, you're going to have one lineage for that. Now, whereas for knowledge, you can have any number of mantras. Now, any number of lineages. So now the mantra, what does the word mantra mean? Mantra means manaha trayate iti mantraha. Manaha means the mind, and trayate means to deliver or to fix. So it helps us, the mantra is some syllables in the Sanskrit language, which are coming from the scripture, which help us to achieve some goal. So we're fixing the mind. In this case, we're fixing the mind on Sriman Narayana, on Lord Krishna. And that way, that is going to help us with the goal of life. The goal of life is, there are many goals of life, of course. In Hinduism, we understand they're called Purusharthas, Artha, Dhamma, Kama, and Moksha. Artha, Kama, Dhamma, and Moksha, let's say, in that order, right? So we need to feed ourselves, clothe ourselves, cover ourselves with with a roof over our head, right? That's Artha, that's material gain. Kama, we have certain desires to have a family or to gain wealth or to whatever it is. That's Artha. Dhamma means religiosity. We want to be good people. We want to live a good life, and ultimately want all those things to be together so that we can ultimately attain the supreme or the perfection of life, which is to get free from this cycle of birth and death in this material world called samsara, and go to moksha, which is liberation. So liberation is called the ultimate purushartha or goal of human life. So the scriptures, the Vedas again, the Narayana Upanishad says, Om Namo Narayanayiti Mantropasakaha Vaikuntha Bhuvana Lokam Gamishyati. The word Gamishyati means he will go. It's a plural, it's a future tense. He will go. Vaikuntha Bhuvana Lokam. He will go to Vaikuntha. He will go to the spiritual world, to this Paramapada that's talked about in the Rig Veda, Paramapada. He will go to Paramapada, right? Whatever our concept of Paramapada is, that may be different, okay? We may have, people have different concepts of what Paramapada means, but it means getting beyond birth and death, old age and disease, beyond samsara, beyond rebirth. So he will go to that. Who will go to that? Upasakaha, the person who worships, or the person who uses, or the person who knows. Om Namo Narayanaya, who knows Om Namo Narayanaya, the mantra Om Namo Narayanaya, the 8-syllable mantra, and its meaning. So this is very basic for Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya, and other Sampradayas they may have different mantras. There might be different basic mantras that they use, like that. All the Vaishnava Sampradayas have mantras that have to do with Sriman Narayana or one of his avatars like Krishna or Rama, Narasimha, different avatars. And other Sampradayas, Shaivites, Shaktites, they have also their mantras and things. They all have their paramparas. They all have their philosophies. They all have their doctrines. They all have their teachers, and the teachers teach the specific mantras. And the mantras are considered to be like seeds of the knowledge of the doctrines. And the mantras themselves, although they're very short, they contain a lot of information if you go into them. Just like a seed of a banyan tree contains the potentiality of the whole tree. But we need to plant it and we need to water it for it to become a big tree. So that's what we do when we cultivate, when we meditate, when we think of the meanings, when we try to internalize what we've heard from authorities or read in the scriptures or heard from different shiksha gurus, teachers. We try to internalize that and realize that we are, watering the seed, and the seed will grow into a big tree, and we'll have a lot of realization from a very short 8-syllable mantra. So there's a mantra parampara, and then there's a shiksha, a doctrinal parampara. So the question is, the one that we showed before, is it a mantra parampara, or is it a shiksha parampara or a diksha parampara? What kind of parampara is it? And let's just have a look at it right now. Okay, so let's share that. So this was the Guru Parampara, the main Guru Parampara of the Tenacharya Sampradaya of the Tengalai Sri Vaishnavas. And you can see here it starts with Lord Ranganath and goes through Lakshmi and Vishwaksena and goes all the way down to Ramanuja down the bottom here, and in the form of a garland of jewels. And the jewels are the different acharyas, and comes back to here, right? So in the middle, I described in the last session, I described that there are 3 mantras in the middle here. So the implication is that these 3 mantras go down all the way down to the end. They go round, they go down through this parampara. So these 3 mantras are carried down in this parampara. So therefore it is a mantra parampara. So the 3 mantras again, Om Namo Narayanaya, the 8-syllable mantra, which was taught by Narayana to Nara, both incarnations of Lord Narayana in Badrikashram. The Dvaya mantra, Sriman Narayana Charano Sharanam Papadye Shrimate Narayanaya Namaha, which is taught by Lord Narayana to Lakshmi Devi in Vaikuntha. And the verse from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 1866, called the Charama Sloka, or the last final order of Lord Krishna, Sarva Dharman Parichaja Mamekam Sharanam Vaja Aham Tva Sarva Papebhyo Moksha Yishami Masuchaha. Spoken by Lord Krishna to Arjuna, his final word of the Bhagavad Gita, final instruction. These 3 are passed down through this parampara. Now, it's not to say that this is the only parampara in Sri Vaishnavism. There are many, many gurus, but they all trace themselves back to one or more of these. Everybody's tracing themselves back to Ramanuja, or to Ramanuja's guru, or to Yamunacharya, or to one of the Alwars, you know, some person on this mala is going to be in your parampara, and you will receive at least these 3 mantras, if not more mantras, if you take Samashranam, or what's called Panchasamskara initiation in the Sri Sampradaya. So, yes, it is a Diksha Parampara. Most paramparas, when we say the word Guru Parampara in India, normally we're talking about the mantra Diksha Parampara. Normally we're talking about, if we specify that it is not a Diksha Parampara, a mantra Parampara, then we can also have a Shiksha Parampara. Ramanuja also studied the works of the Alwars, and he studied it from a certain person. He got the mantra from Mahapurna. Down here we have Mahapurna. Mahapurna, or Parinambi, is the Diksha, mantra Diksha guru of Ramanuja. He gave him the mantra. He didn't give him the meaning of the mantra in full. That was given to him by a Shiksha guru called Goshti Purna. He didn't give him the meaning of Ramayana. He studied that under someone else. He studied the meaning of the 4,000 Nalaya Divya Prabandham under also somebody else. Those people are also initiated Vaishnavas, Sri Vaishnavas. And they had some parampara, and they also knew these mantras. But they are not the person who gave him the mantra. The person who gave him the mantra was Mahapurna Periyanambi. Okay? So, is this a Diksha Parampara? Yes, this is a mantra Diksha Parampara. But let's also look and see if the teachings are coming down. Are the teachings coming down through Lakshmi, from Lord Ranganatha, through Lakshmi, through Vishwaksena, through Nam Alwar? Nam Alwar is the head of the Alwars, so you can consider Nam Alwar to be like all the Alwars, giving the 4,000 prayers of the Alwars. Then to Nata Muni, right? Then to Uyakonda or Pundarikaksha. Sometimes I'll say the Tamil name, sometimes I'll say the Sanskrit name. Then to Rama Mishra or Madhukal Nambi. Then down to Yamunacharya or Alavandar. Then down to Mahapurna or Parinambi. Then down to Ramanuja, or also called Emberamannar. Then to Govinda, called Embar. Then to Bhatta, or otherwise known as Parasura Bhatta. Right? Then to Vedanti Jir, who is also called Nanjir. Then to Kalyavaradasa, to Nampillai, right? Then to Krishna to Vadakatira Vidi Pillai, right? And then to Lokacharya, who is also called Pillai Lokacharya, who is the guru that we're going to talk about his life today. And then further on to Sri Shailesha, right? Who is called Tiruvai Moli Pillai, right? And then finally to Varavara Muni, who in Tamil is called Manavalama Munigal. Now, Manavalama Munigal received also the mantras through this Guru Parampara. He's the last person before he comes back to Lord Ranganatha. And he also received the esoteric teachings also. Now, did he receive training in all the meetings of the works of the Alwars from this particular person, or the Ramayana, or whatever? Maybe not. But he received at least these 3 mantras, and he received some esoteric teachings, some of the main esoteric teachings. And in fact, Manavalama Munigal is the one who wrote commentaries on the books of the person we're going to talk about today, of Pillai Lokacharya. Okay, so I'm just going to unshare there. And are there any questions about whether that parampara is a Diksha Parampara or a Shiksha Parampara? The short answer is it is a Diksha Parampara, which is the normal parampara. It is also a Shiksha Parampara, right? But it is not perhaps the only Shiksha Parampara that we could put. We could put Ramanuja out there, and we could put there is in fact in some of Ramanuja's biographies, the gurus that he had are named for which subject. So he has different paramparas for different subjects, and we could trace those out if we wanted to, but we didn't. So the main important thing is the mantra, That's the most important thing. And that's the generally, when we say Parampara, we're talking about Mantra Guru Parampara and the main esoteric teachings. So this Parampara here is one after the other. Everybody met each other. Everybody was in the presence of this person, right? Nobody lived at a different time. Everybody met each other, right? And studied under each other and directly got the teachings and the mantras from the person before them and gave it to the person after them, Parampara. Does that answer your question, Govindacharya? And if you have any other questions about that, let me know.
That's fine. Thank you very much, Swami.
Yeah, so I just wanted to make it very clear because some people are not too clear about the concepts because they've heard about some other different types of paramparas. And but we did discuss also that, you know, if you read something from an acharya, in a sense, you're receiving it from him in parampara. However, you have to realize that. So you have to meditate on that, and the super soul within your heart has to help you realize that. And you can very much, when you're reading a text, it also helps if you can learn it from somebody who has realized it, right? Rather than just reading it. I mean, we can all go to the library and we can get a copy of Sri Vachana Bhushana. We can, on the internet, we can just download it. It's a very deep shastra, and therefore we should probably try to study it, if we want to study it very deeply, from somebody who's realized it and somebody who, you know, can really give us the full meanings and everything like that. So I'm not able to do that, but at least I'm able to discuss these books with people. So as much as I can, we can discuss these things. So I'd like to now, if anybody else has any questions or comments, or we could go on to the life of Pillai Lokacharya and talk a little bit about that. Asmad Gurubhyo Namaha, Asmad Paramagurubhyo Namaha, Asmad Sarvagurubhyo Namaha. So today we want to talk a little bit about the life and teachings of Pillai Lokacharya. So Pillai Lokacharya, let's put a picture of him, or, you know, a supposed picture of him up on the screen so everybody can see that and not just look at my face while we're doing this. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Does that look nice? Okay. And what we're going to do is I'm going to discuss with you, his life and teachings. His life is also is a form of teachings. And we're going to go through this, and there'll be quite a lot of terminology which I'll explain. Because in Sri Vaishnavism, or in any system, there's terminology and jargon and words that we perhaps don't understand. Okay, so I'm just gonna start reading about him, and if anybody has any questions, you can just chime in. So you can all see his picture there. So Swami Pillai Lokacharya, yesterday we talked about the Guru Parampara, so we sort of know when he came, where he comes in the Guru Parampara. Swami Pillai Lokacharya was born as a son of Vadakatiravidi Pillai, and I think we discussed that also. He's also one of the Guru Parampara there. Vadakatiravidi means the North Street. A person, Pillai means son in Tamil, who was born who lived in the North Street. It's either the North Street of Sri Rangam or the North Street of some temple. Tiruvidi means a holy street. And Vadaka means north, a northern holy street. And he was born in the year 1205 CE of Common Era. Now, some people have different ideas about when he was born. So I don't really want to enter into a discussion of when exactly he was born, but traditionally the Sri Vaishnavas have celebrated his 800th anniversary in the year 2005. So that would mean he was born in 1205. So some other people may think that he was born in some other time, and that's fine. We don't have a problem with that. What's more important than actually when he was actually born, the date when he was actually born, is his teachings and what happened in his life. He was an author who composed what is called the Astadas Rahasyas, or the 18, he composed 18 books on secrets, on esoteric teachings of the Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya. His position in the Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya is unique. In the Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya, we talk about there being two eyes of the Sampradaya, and they are Pramanam and Prameyam. So Pramanam means a proof, means scripture. Scripture, like we were talking about before, there are different types of proof. There's empirical proof, logical proof, and scriptural proof, or the proof of authoritative statements. And Prameya is that which is proved by the proof. And what is proved by the scriptural proof is Sriman Narayana. The Supreme Lord is proved by that. And when we say Sriman Narayana, we include Chit, Achit, and Ishvara. What do I mean by that? Chit means all the living entities, all the souls in the universe. And Achit means all the matter in the universe, right? So all souls, all matter, all sentient and insentient things, right? And as well, God, Ishvara. So when we say Sriman Narayana, it means all of them put together. Chit, Achit, Ishvara. That's what it means. So the esoteric meanings and understanding of everything that there is contained within these teachings, and is what we call Prameyam, the Prameyam, right? So the Pramanam is the proof for the subject. What's the subject? The subject's everything. The subject's everything that exists. It means God, the souls, the universe, everything. What's their relationship? Okay. Why should we understand this? Normally, before we get into a discussion of Sri Vachanabhushanam, normally we've understood about what pramanas are, what are different types of epistemological proofs, and how to understand right knowledge. And we've also understood the system, and the system of understanding things. There's first tattva, understanding what is truth or a particular thing. Hita, the method of reaching the goal, and the goal itself. This word prameyam can also mean goal. It's the goal. Okay, so some acharyas have concentrated, some gurus, they concentrate on the pramanas, they concentrate on the scriptures and learning the scriptures, writing commentaries, writing books, and teaching the scriptures. And other acharyas, they concentrate on the worship of God in his different forms. And according to Pancharatra, he has those different forms. Excuse me. He has 5 different forms: Karnika, Vyuha, Vibhava, Antaryaman, and Archa. Specifically in this world, we're usually worshiping the Lord in the form of a deity in the temple or in the house, or perhaps by chanting his holy names, or perhaps through some fire ceremony, in some way that is mentioned in the scriptures, that we can worship the Lord. The Lord's everywhere, so we can actually worship the Lord everywhere. But the way that we worship him in different places, in the water, in the fire, in the deity, in the scriptures, is in a different way, in a slightly different way. So some acharyas, they concentrate on the theory, the scriptures and everything like that. And some acharyas, they concentrate on the practice and the practical, the deity worship and all this sort of stuff. Pillai Lokacharya was such an acharya that he concentrated on both things. And we'll find out through his life story, we'll find out a little bit more about that. Lokacharya was one of the greatest servants and who spared his life for preserving the pramanam, the scriptures, as well as safeguarding the prameyam, the Lord. His immaculate, imperious, ineffable service to the Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya can neither be measured nor clothed in any genre of literature. So there's a place called Jodhishkudi, which is a small village in Tamil Nadu in Madurai district, which is just south of Srirangam. And that is the place where they have the Samadhi. The Samadhi means the burial place of Pillai Lokacharya. Pillai Lokacharya, by the way, was a brahmachari, never got married, never took sannyas, he never became a swami. But because he was a brahmachari throughout his life, normally the grihastas, the people who get married, they normally cremated, but he was entombed, and he has a Samadhi mandir in a place called Jyotish Kudi, which is in Tamil Nadu, in Madurai district in India. So it's very sad, but a lot of people don't know that, and they don't go there, and it's not visited very much. So before we go on, there are taniyans, or there are pranam mantras. There are prayers that we say to glorify each acharya, each guru. So I'm not going to go into those now fully, but next time we'll go into those, because before starting the actual text of any Sri Vaishnava text, one is supposed to chant the prayers. Now, we usually start our discussions just very simply, Asmat Gurubhyo Namaha, Asmat Parama Gurubhyo Namaha, Asmat Sarva Gurubhyo Namaha, meaning I offer my respects to my gurus, my teachers, to their teachers, and to all teachers. But there are specific prayers for each teacher. So the prayer for Pillai Lokacharya, there are a few prayers, there are many prayers, but the one main prayer for him, right, goes like this. Lokacharyaya Gurave, Krishna Padasya Shunave, Samsara Bhogi Sandasta, Jiva Jivatave Namaha. And those of you who have been taking the Mamukshipadi class with Dr. Alwar, you'll probably heard this. He has explained it also. So if you want to go and look at that video, he's explained this one. I'm just going to read the translation. Prostrations to Pillai Lokacharya, the son of Krishnapada. His father's name was also Krishnapada, who is the very life of the souls withered in mundane experiences. And the mundane experiences are compared to being bitten by snakes, by deadly snakes like cobras. So, Vishishtadvaita philosophy, the philosophy of the Sri Vaishnava Guru Parampara, right, is also called Ubhaya Vedanta. Ubhaya Vedanta means that there's two types of Vedanta. Vedanta means the end of all knowledge. And it usually means the knowledge we get from the Upanishads, which are part of the philosophical part of the Vedas. But it also means, Ubhaya Vedanta means there's another place that we get knowledge from, spiritual knowledge, and that is the vernacular in Tamil Nadu, the Tamil Vedas, or the Tamil Nalayir Divi Prabandham, the 4,000 songs of the Alwars, the 12 Alwars of great saints who were also there in the beginning of the Sri Sampradaya. So that's why it's called Ubhaya Vedanta, because it has these two things, these two sources of knowledge, the Vedas, the Upanishads, and the 4,000 divine holy songs in Tamil of the Alwars. So normally when you're in South India, you hear about three main types of philosophy. There's the Advaita philosophy of Shankara, there's the Dvaita philosophy of Madhva, and there's the Vishishtadvaita philosophy of the Ramanuja Sampradaya. So I don't expect anybody to understand what that all means. It just means there's monism, there's Dvaita, there's dualism, and there's something in between. So that something in between is called Vishishtadvaita. It's specified or holistic monism, right? It's a type of seeing everything as one, but at the same time understanding the difference between different parts of that one, right? Seeing the unity between God, the souls, and the world, but also seeing the difference, the eternal difference between those things and their relationship. And the relationship is explained by Ramanuja as very, very easily as like the relationship between the body and the soul. It seems to be one thing, but it's actually two things. So this philosophy is explained by these different acharyas in different ways. So what happened was that Ramanuja came and he wrote certain books explaining the Brahma Sutras, the Upanishads, right, and the Bhagavad Gita, which are the basic texts. When we remember, we talked about pramanam, the basic pramanams, the basic proofs of the philosophy of Vishishtadvaita, or the philosophy of any school of Vedanta, relies upon the Upanishads, the Brahma Sutras, which are short aphorisms explaining Brahman, or what is the supreme, right, and the Bhagavad Gita. So each and every Acharya, like Shankara, Madhva, and Ramanuja, they've all given commentaries on those things. We're not going to go into those things now. We're going to go into more esoteric things than that. So there was a whole lineage coming down to this person, Krishnapada. So we need to start just a little bit before Krishnapada to understand Pillai Lokacharya. So Pillai Lokacharya, his father was the disciple of Nam Pillai. So Nam Pillai, which means our son, was a disciple of Vedanti Jia, but Nam Pillai was one of the first persons to write down the esoteric meanings of the Alwar's 4,000 Nalaya Divya Prabandham. He wrote them in a book called the Idu. It's also called Mupada Ara Ayiram. Okay, so that's why they call it Idu, because nobody can pronounce the other one. The longer version is Mupada means 30, Ara means 6, Ayiram, as we said, Nalayiram means 4,000. It means 1,000. So it means the 36,000 verses explaining the 4,000 verses. Okay, so somebody wrote a commentary on that. That's considered to be the greatest commentary on the works of the Alwars, the esoteric meanings. And it was first written down by this Nam Pillai. And Nam Pillai was, because of that, he was known as Lokacharya. He was also known as Lokacharya, but nobody calls him Lokacharya now. There's a story. There's a story why he was called Lokacharya. I really want to go into that because we want to talk about Pillai Lokacharya. So Nam Pillai was called Lokacharya, right? So Nam Pillai's disciple was this Krishnapada, who was the father of Vedanta Deshika. So, not Vedanta Deshika, excuse me, Pillai Lokacharya. Right. So Pillai Lokacharya, his father was actually a brahmachari, and somehow or other, through his the family insisted on him getting married and got him married. So he was married, and then after some time, his mother, and I'm sure the girl's mother also, probably complained to the guru, Nam Pillai, that I don't have any grandchildren. So this Krishnapada has got married, but he's not producing any children. So Nam Pillai called him there, called his disciple there, and he said to him, no, you should observe Grihastha Ashram. The Grihastha Ashram means that you should observe, you should have children. So then he had children with his wife. With the blessings of his guru, he had a son. His son was called by him Pillai Lokacharya. So what does that mean? The word Pillai Lokacharya, actually, it could start out as Lokacharya Pillai. Because his guru, Nam Pillai, was called Lokacharya, Krishnapada thought, oh, my guru gave me blessings to have a child, so the child I'm going to name after the guru, after my guru. So my guru's name is Lokacharya, so I'm going to call my child Lokacharya's child, because he gave me the blessing, and therefore he got the name Pillai Lokacharya or Lokacharya Pillai, whichever way you want to say it, the son of Lokacharya, right? So he wasn't actually his son, but he was the son of one of his disciples. So then what happened was that Lord Ranganatha gave a benediction. The deity in Sri Rangam gave a benediction to this Krishnapada and his wife to have another son. So they had another son, and the other son was another younger brother. The other son was called The other son was called, just let me see here. Well, let's talk about the birth of Pillai Lokacharya first before we talk about his brother. Nam Pillai was a devoted disciple of Vadakatiruvidi Pillai, Krishnapada. Had a disciple called Krishnapada, who was also called Vadakatiruvidi Pillai. He got married to a woman called Sri Ranganachia. Ranganachia means that she was named after the goddess in Sri Rangam. Even though he was in Grihastha Ashram Dharma, he was full of vairagya, which means detachment. So he didn't have any offspring for a long time. And so Nam Pillai told him to go he blessed him to have a child, and so he had a child. Nam Pillai instantly called up Vadakatiruvidi Pillai and asked him to follow Grihastha Ashram and told him that this would not harm his vairagya, it wouldn't harm his detachment. Okay, so then Lokacharya was born in 1205 in this family, very good family, which is called the Mudumbai family in Srivatsagotra, right, in the Apastamba Sutra, which is a section of the Yajurveda, in the Tamil month of Aipasi, which we can explain some other time, and under the star called Tiruvonam, which is also a Tamil name for a star. He was called Pillai Lokacharya out of respect for his father's guru, Nam Pillai, and his blessings. Manavala Mahamuni glorifies, Manavala Mahamuni, remember, is the disciple of Pillai Lokacharya, the last person in that garland, Parampara, glorified the birth of his grand guru, Pillai Lokacharya, with the following statement in Upadesha Ratnamala. Now, Upadesha Ratnamala is a book by Manavala Mahamuni glorifying the books of Pillai Lokacharya. Manavala Mahamuni also wrote commentaries on the books of Pillai Lokacharya. So, and we can go into that too. We can find out exactly what he said in Upadesha Ratnamala also, but not right now. So there's another anecdote. There's another story regarding the birth of Pillai Lokacharya that Kanchi Devaraj Perumal, which means in Kanchipuram, which is north of Sri Rangam, east of Sri Rangam, right? There's a deity called Varadaraj Perumal, or Vishnu, Deva Perumal, who took birth as Pillai Lokacharya. So there's another tradition that says that the deity in Kanchipuram of Vishnu actually took an incarnation or an avatar as Pillai Lokacharya. So there are some people who believe Pillai Lokacharya is an incarnation of this deity in Kanchipuram. And the reason for that is that there was a devotee who lived in Kanchipuram, who was very devoted to the deity in Kanchipuram, and he received from the deity some visions, and the deity was speaking to him all secret subject matters. But at a certain point, the deity stopped and didn't continue on those secret subject matters. Then later, that same devotee went to Sri Rangam, and he met Pillai Lokacharya, and Pillai Lokacharya was teaching the same secrets that he had heard from the deity in trance, but teaching more of them. And so this person realized that the deity in Kanchipuram had incarnated as Pillai Lokacharya. So anyway, some people believe that he's an incarnation of Devaraj Perumal from Kanchi. Okay? So, then, so Pillai Lokacharya, he grew up and he was learned in the scriptures, and he had understood the esoteric teachings coming down from Nam Pillai, who had written them down through his father, and directly through Nam Pillai. His father's guru was also alive while he was growing up. And when this person from Kanchipuram came, his name was Manakap Manar Kapak to Nambi, reached Sri Rangam, he was told that there was a person who was giving class on these esoteric topics. So the place where Pillai Lokacharya was giving class was not actually in the original Sri Rangam temple, but it was a little bit away from the original Sri Rangam temple. So if you go to Sri Rangam today, there's a train station, which is Sri Rangam train station, and near there, which is a little bit away from the temple, there's another temple of Lakshmi Narasimha, and it's called Katalagiya Singha. Katalagiya means, Alagiya means beautiful. Katalagiya means beautiful forest. Singha means Simha or lion, the lion in the beautiful forest. So that is the name of that deity there, Lakshmi Narasimha. And Pillai Lokacharya, he used to teach at that temple. So you can still go to that temple today. I've been many, many times. And you can see the place, the actual place where I keep saying Vedanta, the Pillai Lokacharya used to give his discourses. So again, when this person came from Kanchipuram and he heard the discourses of Lokacharya, he prostrated before him, and he thought that he must be an incarnation of the deity in Kanchipuram because he heard the same things from him. So he said to him, "Are you him? Are you the one?" And Pillai Lokacharya said to him, "Yes. And why do you ask?" So that's very strange. So apparently Pillai Lokacharya is said to have understood the mind of this person who came from Kanchipuram, and to understand that he thought that he was an incarnation of Devraj Parimal, of the deity there. So later on, that person, Manar Pakatu Nambi, stayed with Pillai Lokacharya, and he was like a scribe. He used to write the books of Pillai Lokacharya. So he helped him like a secretary. Just like we know the story of Ganesh. Vedavyasa was arranging the Vedas and everything on the Puranas, and Ganesh was writing. And in the time of just before this, a couple of hundred years before this, at the time of Ramanuja, Kuradalwar was the scribe. He was the secretary for Ramanuja. Ramanuja would dictate, and Kuresh would write it down. Kuradalwar. Okay, so just like that, this person became the scribe of Pillai Lokacharya and helped him to write down his 18 books of secrets called the Astadasa Rahasya Granthas. So now, after the birth of Pillai Lokacharya, during his first birthday celebrations, he was brought before the deity of Sri Ranganatha in Sri Rangam, known as Periya Perumal. There's two deities in Sri Rangam. We discussed this before. There's the big one and there's the little one. There's the big one lying down. Periya means big. So Periya Perumal. Perumal means Vishnu. And there's we don't call it Chinna. We don't call it Syria. We don't call it small. But we call him Nam Perumal, our God, because he goes around all the streets and visits all the houses, goes around in the streets in procession. So the metal processional deity of Ranganatha, standing, Vishnu, goes around. His name is Nam Perumal. So he was brought before Periya Perumal, the big 6 meter long, 18-foot long Lord Narayana lying down on Shesha Ananta Shesha deity. And the priests there declared that the Lord said through the priest that your guru's guru, or your gurus to the father said, your guru gave you the blessing of this son. And similarly, the Lord is so pleased that you have this son, he's going to give you another son. The Lord is going to give you a blessing and give you another son. And that is the blessing of Lord Ranganatha. So a year or so after this, in 1207, Common Era, Pillai Lokacharya, a younger brother was born to Pillai Lokacharya, to Krishna, his father, Krishnapad's, or Vaduka Tiravidi Pillai's family, right? And his younger brother was called Alagiya Manavala Perumal Nayana. Okay, that is a very long name. What does it mean? Alagiya means beautiful. Manavala Peramal Nayanar is a name of Vishnu. Let's just say it's a name of Vishnu in Tamil. Manavala Peramal. Peramal means Vishnu. Nayana. So Alagiya Manavala Peramal Nayanar took his birth. He was the younger brother of Pillai Lokacharya. So then, as the boys grew up, they both learned all the different shastras. They learned the Sri Bhatsyam, the commentary on the Vedanta Sutras. They learned the Aruli Chayal. Aruli Chayal. Aruli Chayal means the Nalayir Divya Prabandhams. That's the way that Sri Vaishnavas talk about the 4,000 Tamil songs of the Alwars. The Bhagavad Visham, which is commentary on Nam Alwar's Tiruvai Moli. Tiruvai Moli is the thousand songs of Nam Alwar. And they also learn the Rahasyas, the secret esoteric books from their father, who was Krishnapada, but also known as Vadakatira Vidi Pillai, and Nam Pillai, the father's guru. So they learned all these things. Okay, so as they grew up, the two boys, they happened to hear their father, at one time they heard their father talking about actually how he never actually really wanted to get married. So at that time, they decided that they would remain brahmacharis for their lives. So they remained brahmacharis their whole lives, both of them. Swami Pillai Lokacharya also had a lot of disciples. Manar Pakatu Nambi, we talked about, this person who came from Kanchipuram, who heard in trance, heard some secrets from the Devraj Perumal in Kanchipuram. Another person called Vilan Cholai Pillai, Kura Kulottama Das, a person called Piran Tataram Rannar Iyer, the father of Swami Manavala Muni. So later on, Manavala Muni is coming two generations later. So he's the next but one in the Guru Parampara. So his father became a disciple of Pillai Lokacharya. Were a few amongst the notable disciples of Swami Pillai Lokacharya. So as we said before, that first disciple, Manar Pakatu Nambi, he was helping to write down and catalog the 18 different books that Pillai Lokacharya was writing. There was another person, this person, Vilan Cholai Pillai, right, was of a low caste. He was of a low caste, and he was a native of Tiruvananthapuram in Kerala, which used to be called Trivandrum, where they have the 27-foot long, 9-meter long deity of Vishnu lying down. Richest temple in the world by now, because they found a whole lot of gold there. But it's a very famous temple also, called Ananta Padmanabha Swami in Kerala. So he was a native of Kerala, and he studied, although he was of a low class, so he was born in a low caste, he studied all Vedas and Vedantas from Pillai Lokacharya. And he also wrote a small book called Sapta Kathai, summarizing the deeper meanings of Srivachana Bhushana. So we're going to be talking about Srivachana Bhushana in a minute. But this disciple of Pillai Lokacharya's, who was not a Brahmin, was of a low caste, he wrote this book which summarized the teachings that were in Srivachana Bhushana, which is the magnum opus of Pillai Lokacharya. The devotion of this devotee to Swami Pillai Lokacharya was well known. By the command of Swami Lokacharya, he finally went back to Tiruvananthapuram to do service to the deity of Ananta Padmanabha Swami in that place. Another disciple called Kura Kulottama Dasa, Swami Pillai Lokacharya left the duty of bringing the wise and young Tirumalai Alwar, a brilliant chief of the Panjan kingdom, to the Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya. So in those days, there were different kingdoms. Padmanabha Swami in Trivandrum, that would have been in another kingdom in Kerala. There are two around Sri Rangam, there are two places where they had centers of different dynasties. So if you go to the east of Sri Rangam, you come to a place called Tanjore, which is about, I think, 70 kilometers east of Sri Rangam. That is the head of the Chola dynasty. So all the Chola kings used to live there, some of whom had persecuted, one of whom, Premikanta Chola, who had persecuted Ramanuja a couple of hundred years before, who was a Shaivite king. And then if you go further south from Sri Rangam, you come to another place called Madurai, and in that place was the headquarters of the Pandyan kingdom. So it's a different kingdom. Okay, so Sri Rangam is just sort of in between these two kingdoms. So the Pandyan kings, right? The Pandyan kings had a minister, and that minister's name was Tirumalai Alwar. Tirumalai means Tirupati. It's in Andhra Pradesh. It's north of Chennai, like that. But he had a minister there of the Pandya kingdom, and Swami Pillai Lokacharya wanted to convert that person to become a Sri Vaishnava. Apparently he wasn't a Sri Vaishnava, but he wanted to convert him. So he sent one of his disciples, Kurukulottama Dasa, to convert this person to Malay Alwar, and he became a Sri Vaishnava. Later, Tirumalai Alwar, this person who became a Sri Vaishnava, was known as Tiruvaimoli Pillai. So his original name was Tirumalai. A lot of people have a name and they have a place in the name. So in other words, like my name is Keshava. So I'm from Sydney, Australia. So you could call me Sydney Keshava. Because there's a lot of people with the name Keshava, the common name. So I'm the one that's from Sydney. So his name was Alwar, and he was from Tirumalai, Tirupati. So he was called Tirumalai Alwar. But later on, after he got initiated, he got the name Tiruvaimoli Pillai. Pillai means son again. And Tiruvaimoli is that 1,000-verse work by Nam Alwar, the head of the Alwars. So sorry, there's a lot of jargon here, and it's probably quite boring, but we're going to go through it anyway. Tirumalai Alwar. So Tiruvaimoli Pillai was so called for his infinite devotion towards Nam Alwar. So he was very much interested in the songs of Nam Alwar, and the magnum opus, the great work of Nam Alwar, which is that 1,000th verse part of the 4,000. The Idu, or the 36,000 verses, which is the commentary on that, right, was made public with the help of this person, and that was written down by Nam Pillai. It was the esoteric meaning of the 1,000 verses of Nam Alwar. He later also became the Acharya of Manavala Mahamunigal. So Manavala Mahamunigal, he became known as Sri Shailesha. So Manavala Mahamunigal, the last Acharya in the Acharya Ratnahara, his Acharya was this person. So, all right, so that's a little bit about the early life and teachings of Pillai Lokacharya and his disciples. Now, let's just talk a little bit about the works, the 18 Rahasyas, the 18 esoteric works that Pillai Lokacharya wrote. So in the vast ocean of Veda and Vedanta, Swami Pillai Lokacharya concentrated solely on documenting Rahasya-related subjects. So he concentrated writing books on esoteric secret doctrines. Unlike Vedanta Deshika, unlike Ramanuja, who wrote books on other subjects, right, on philosophical subjects, he concentrated on only writing about the secret doctrines. And this is important because up until that time, nobody had written about the secret doctrines, not directly. What they had done was they had written about the secret doctrines indirectly, and before that, they had only given the secret doctrines by word of mouth. So from most of the Guru Parampara, it is all the secret doctrines have been given from from guru to disciple by word of mouth, sometimes only to one person, the best disciple, just to keep the tradition alive. Then at a certain point, people like Nam Pillai, they started writing down the esoteric doctrines, the secret doctrines, and they wrote them in commentaries on the works of the Alwars and other scriptures. So in other words, they were actually the books of other people, the books of the Alwars, the books of the Acharyas, and they wrote some purports and they put some esoteric meanings in the purports. But there was nobody who wrote a book only about the esoteric secret doctrines. Nobody took it and made it a book by itself, the esoteric doctrines. So that is the greatness of Pillai Lokacharya, that he is the first person to make it into its own Shastra, its own book of esoteric doctrines. Now, Vedanta Deshika, of course, came later. Pillai Lokacharya was about 64 years older than Vedanta Deshika. Vedanta Deshika appeared in 1269, so he was 64 years younger than Pillai Lokacharya. So Pillai Lokacharya was quite old when Vedanta Deshika made his appearance. And Vedanta Deshika also wrote on esoteric doctrines. And he, in fact, wrote a book called Rahasya Trayasaram. And he wrote other ones too, other secret doctrine books like that. The difference is that Pillai Lokacharya had the advantage of coming in a particular Guru Parampara where the secret doctrines were being spoken of and written in the commentaries, but also spoken by word of mouth. And there were certain things like the 36,000, which had not been publicized so much, right? The big commentary on the secrets contained in the Nam Alwar's 1,000 prayers, that perhaps Vedanta Deshika didn't really know everything about that. So Pillai Lokacharya had the advantage. He had the advantage because he was coming in that particular Guru Parampara. So Swami Pillai Lokacharya's mission in life was just to make a synthesis between the philosophical tone and methodology of Vedanta and the devotional tone of the songs of the Alwars, of the great saints in Tamil. So now let's talk a little bit about the actual secret doctrines themselves. In the Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya, there are 2 secret mantras, and then one other thing which is not really secret. There's a verse. So we already talked about those. There's the Tira mantra, the Astakshara mantra. The word Tira means Shri, right? The Astakshara mantra, the 8-syllable mantra, Om Namo Narayanaya. There's the Dwaya mantra, which is 2 mantras in one, Sriman Narayana Charano Sharanam Papadye, Srimate Narayanaya Namaha, right? And then they're sort of secret. And then there's the sloka in Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna's final instruction in 1866 to Arjuna, Sarvadhamam Pritida, Mamikam Sharanam Bhaja, Aham Tva Sarupapebhyo, Moksha Yishami Masuchaha. So these are the 3 things which are referred to as rahasyas. Now, there are some other rahasyas. There are some other secret mantras, and no doubt. But these are the main ones. And these are the ones which are given in every initiation and explained in every set of these secret doctrine books. These are the main ones. Some others are also explained. They're referred to as secrets because of their nature is esoteric, because of the meanings in them. The teaching of them, as well as initiation into them, is not public, right? And was also not easily available from acharyas even at that time. So even if people wanted the secret information, they couldn't get it. Even if they took initiation, they couldn't get the full secret meanings. And this is also there in the life of Ramanuja. Ramanuja took initiation. First of all, he wanted to take initiation from Yamunacharya, but Yamunacharya died, so he couldn't take initiation from Ramanuja. So finally, he also prayed to the deity, that deity in Kanchipuram, and that deity in Kanchipuram had a few questions for that deity, which he related to the deity through a devotee who could speak in trance to that deity, and the deity replied to his 6 questions. And one of the questions, we won't go into all of them, but one of the questions Ramanuja had was, who am I going to take initiation from? Now that Yamunacharya, the one I wanted to take initiation from, has passed away. So the deity of Kanchipuram says, you can, Mahapurnam Tamashraya, you take shelter of Mahapurna, who was one of the 5 main disciples of Yamunacharya. So that is how Ramanuja got to choose his guru. He actually had that question. So even as Diksha Guru, it was difficult for Ramanuja to get Diksha. And then he wanted to get the full esoteric secret meanings of the mantra. So he went to another Shiksha Guru, a person called Goshtipurna, right, in Tirukostiur, this place called Tirukostiur. And he went to see him and he said, okay, I took initiation from your god brother, Periyanambi, Mahapurna, and now I've got this mantra. Please tell me the full extent of the secrets of this mantra, the mantrata. Tell me. And he said, no, I won't tell you. This is to Ramanuja, he told him. He said, go away. You know? So Ramanuja went away and he came back again and tried again, asked him again. Ramanuja went there 18 times before the guru would agree to give him the secrets. And the only reason that Goshtipurna gave the secret meanings, the esoteric meanings to Ramanuja, what to speak of us, the only reason he gave him to Ramanuja was the Lord himself had to come in the Acharya's dream and tell him, look, this person is the Acharya who's going to spread Vaishnavism all over India. He's going to spread it all around and he's going to be the head of the Sampradaya. You've got to tell him the secret meanings. This is so secret. So then Ramanuja, after going 18 times, finally this guru relented and gave him the secrets. And he told him, don't tell people. Don't tell them the mantra even. If you tell this mantra, people will go to Vaikuntha. But if you tell them, you'll go to hell. You are bound to secrecy. You have this mantra from your guru and you have the meaning from me. But if you tell it to others, you'll go to hell. But if anybody gets it, they'll go to Vaikuntha. So Ramanuja immediately climbed up the top of the temple tower and called a big crowd of people around, all sorts of people, without any qualification whatsoever, and told them the mantra. His guru was very upset. His guru said, how can you do that? I told you not to do it and you did it. I told you go to hell and you still did it. And Ramanuja said, I don't care if I go to hell. If all these people can go to Vaikuntha, it's worth it. Then his guru saw how much compassion Ramanuja had. And he embraced him and he accepted what Ramanuja had told him. So this is the extent to which they used to keep things secret. This is the point I'm trying to make to you. That it wasn't written down. It was word of mouth, and you couldn't even get it. Even if you went to somebody who had that secret, he wouldn't give it to you because you might have thought, oh, he's a perfect guru. He's qualified to give it to me. And he might have thought, you're not qualified to receive it. Right? Today, we're all worried about, oh, we want to try to find the perfect guru. But are you the perfect disciple? Are you the perfect, student? So in those days, the gurus, you're not perfect. I'm not going to give you the esoteric meanings. Okay, you have the mantra, but I'm not going to tell you the inner meanings. So the same thing here, that Pillai Lokacharya decided that he wanted to give these esoteric meanings to everybody. So in these 3 rahasyas, these three secrets or mantras, the entire meaning of Vedanta and Vedas are there within them. The knowledge of the 3 secrets invokes what is called Dharma Adbhuta Jnana. Okay, that's a big word there. Dharma Adbhuta Jnana, which means attributive consciousness. It wakes up the consciousness of the living being, with the end result that person attains moksha. This explains why the meanings, the teachings, and the personal instruction were being kept very, very secret. The Rahasya Traya, the three secrets, along with the knowledge of Tattva Traya. Now, what does Tattva Traya mean? Tattva Traya, Traya means three. Tattva means principles, the three principles. What are the three principles? Again, what we said in the beginning, Chit, Achit, Ishvara. The souls, matter, the universe, and God. The secret of these, how they are all one thing and all separate at the same time. How they are separate and how they are one. This is a secret. This knowledge is a secret. And Pillai Lokacharya actually wrote a book with the name Tattva Traya to explain this particular part of the secrets. And you'll be interested to hear this one. He wrote another book called Artha Panchakam. Panchak means five, and Artha means gain, how to gain. Five methods of gain, five subjects, let's say. Artha Panchakam. It's a system, a way of systematizing our principles, our methods, and our goals. Our principles, methods, and goals in Sri Vaishnavism, which is called Tattva, Hita, and Purushartha. Right? It's a way of systematizing that. And we'll come to that later. So here's a couple of books that he wrote. He wrote this Tattva Trayam. He wrote Artha Panchakam. Right? Now, as I said, Vedanta Deshika was a contemporary of Pillai Lokacharya. He was born 64 years after Pillai Lokacharya. And he also wrote books on the secrets, including the concepts of property and Sharanagati. Property means, of course, the system of Sharanagati and property almost mean the same thing. It means surrender to the Lord as a method of getting to moksha or of liberation. Swami Pillai Lokacharya used to do his kalakshepams. What does kalakshepam mean? The word kalakshepam, shepa means to destroy, and kala means time. Kalakshepam means killing time, basically. In English, we say killing time. I'm just killing time. I'm doing something while I'm waiting for something else. What are we waiting for? We're waiting for death. We're waiting to go to Vaikuntha. We're waiting for moksha, because moksha only occurs after death, according to Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya. We believe in Videha Mukti. We don't believe in Jivan Mukti. We don't believe that you can be liberated in this lifetime. You have to shed this material body, which is made up of karma or papas and sins, and then only you can attain Vaikuntha. And that is real liberation, the service of God in heaven, in the Vaikuntha. So kalakshepam means killing time until that. So it's a kalakshepam, the word actually means sitting at the feet of a realized person, right? And learning the scriptures, learning these esoteric meanings one by one in great detail. And spending a lot of time meditating on that so that you can realize that, so that you can get this Dharma Adbhuta Jnana. And of course, you should all know what Dharma Adbhuta Jnana is, because it's mentioned in other more basic texts of Sri Vaishnavism. But attributive consciousness, but to revive our consciousness, let's just say Krishna consciousness. We're reviving our consciousness and really understanding what the Tattva Traya are, what the reality is. So anyway, Pillai Lokacharya would give these kalakshepams, which are killing time lectures or delivering of instructions on the secret doctrines. And later on, he used to do it at this Katalagiya Singha temple, the Lakshmi Narasimha temple near Sri Rangam temple. And Manavala Mahmuni, who came 2 acharyas after him, when he wanted to give lectures, he decided that he would go and bring mud or dirt from that place when building his own place to give lectures. He would bring mud from the place of his grand guru, where his grand guru used to give these lectures. So So they, Manavala Mahamuni had great respect for his grand acharya, Pillai Lokacharya, and so Manavala Mahamuni. Let's see. Here, let's explain about the Ashtadas Rahasyas. Okay, so let's briefly examine the nature of these 18 books that he wrote. Okay, so all of the 18 books that he wrote were not written in Sanskrit and they were not written in Tamil. So there was a new style of writing which is only used by Sri Vaisnava Acharyas in this medieval period. And this type of writing is called Mani Pravala. Mani Pravala means, the word mani means pearls, and pravala means coral. So sometimes you see the ladies, they have this necklace. It's made of pearls and coral. Pearl, coral, pearl, coral, pearl, coral. So red and white, red and white, red and white into a necklace. The pearl is for the moon. The coral is for Mars. It's very beautiful. It's more beautiful than just having a pearl necklace or just having a coral necklace, because it's just beautiful. So Pillai Lokacharya and some other acharyas during that time, they used to write in a language called Mani Pravalam. Mani Pravalam is Tamilized Sanskrit. So they would use Sanskrit words and give Tamil endings to them. So it was Tamil grammar, but it was Sanskrit words. A lot of Sanskrit words, but with Tamil endings. Okay, so it's called Mani Pravalam. And also, so that was a unique thing that they started to do, is to write in Mani Pravalam. It's not Sanskrit, it's not Tamil, it's a hybrid language. And it's only the language of Sri Vaishnava Acharyas in this time. And they also, what Pillai Lokacharya started doing was, he started writing in very short aphorisms, like sutras. So if you ever know, in Sanskrit literature, there's a time when they made so many scriptures, they wrote so many books on so many subjects that there was too much for anybody to read in one lifetime. So what they did was, the authors used to take those books and condense them down into very short phrases so that people could memorize them. And just by memorizing a phrase, you could think about a whole chapter of a book or a whole subject of a book. So those phrases are called sutras. Sutras means a thread. Just like today we have email, we have thread. An email thread means it's all one subject. So these are called sutras or threads. In Tamil, they call them churnikas. Churnikas means sutras, basically. The word churnika means powder, pollen, dust. Okay, so sutras. So also, as well as writing in Mani Pravala, he was also writing in sutras, sutra form. Sutra form can be very cryptic. Thus, when Manavala Mahamuni came along after him, he wrote voluminous commentaries on the small aphorisms in the books of Pillai Lokacharya. Just like we might see a book today, Bhagavad Gita, we see the original verse, and then we see a purport, we see a commentary by somebody who gives the explanation of the verse. So Pillai Lokacharya was the one who wrote the verses, or the sutras, and Manavala Mahamunigal wrote the purports, wrote the expanded explanation of the secret doctrines. So the remarkable thing about Pillai Lokacharya is that he believed that there were no differences in caste or sex between people as far as learning scriptures, as far as learning these secrets. So men, women, Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, Sudras, anybody, outcasts, everybody had the same. He wanted these secrets to be told to everybody. So previously, there might have been other acharyas who said, no, this can only be taught to Brahmins, this can only be taught to men. But Pillai Lokacharya, he said, no, I want to teach this to everybody. He said, the aim of everybody is moksha, is to get free from this material world, to free from samsara. And therefore, the jivatman, the soul, has to understand what his duty is. And in order to do that, each and every soul has to be able to have access to these secrets. So, out of these 18 books that he wrote, they're divided up into 3 categories. The first category, in the first 8 books, are on the Rahasya Traya. They're explaining the meaning of these 3 mantras, Om Namo Narayana, and Dvaya Mantra, and Charma Sloka. The next 5 books explain Tattva Traya and Artha Panchaka. Right? I already explained what that means. And the final section of books explains about the Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya in general and puts all of these things together. Right? So, let's look at the books. First of all, in the first section, the first 8 books, which talk about the 3 mantras, right? The origin of Rahasya Trayam, we talked about that Narayan Rishis in Bhadrakashram spoke the Astakshara mantra. The Lord spoke to Mahalakshmi, the Dvaya mantra in Vaikuntha. Lord Krishna spoke the Charma Sloka to Arjuna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, right? So, in this category of explaining about these 3 secret mantras, Pillai Lokacharya wrote these 8 books called Yadrikshakapadi, Shriyapatipadi, Mumukshapadi, Parantapadi, Tani Pranavam, Tani Dvayam, Tani Charamam, and Sar Sangraham. Of the first one is known as Yadrikshakapati. It has 3 prakaranas or sections, one each for the Tira Mantram, the Dvaya Mantram, and the Charma Sloka. The word Yadishrika means spontaneous or unexpected, akin to the mercy of the Lord, which is causeless. Now, this is a difference, which you will see. The emphasis on the Sri Vaishnava or Tenacharya Sampradaya, the Southern Protestant school of Sri Vaishnavism, is on the grace of the Lord, which is causeless. And the emphasis of the Northern school, the Catholic school, or Vadagalai Sri Vaishnava school, is on the grace of the Lord also. But it's on the caused grace. This caused grace and uncaused grace, or causeless grace, is called, the cause is called hetu in Sanskrit. So, sa hetuka means caused grace. Nir hetuka means uncaused or causeless grace. So kripa, the word kripa means grace. So there's sa hetuka kripa, caused grace, nir hetuka kripa, uncaused grace. So the emphasis in the Rahasyas, in the secret esoteric doctrines of the Tengalai Sri Vaishnava Southern group or the Protestants is on the uncaused grace of the Lord. The causeless grace of the Lord has this grace which just showers down on everybody. Yeah, uncauses. It's causes. So, this first work of his is very abstracted, and so he thought people would find it too difficult to understand. So then he made another one, right, of medium size, sort of like Ramanuja made different commentaries on the Vedanta Sutra. He made a very big one, he made a medium-sized one, he made a short one. So here he made a very short one, and he thought this is too condensed, people cannot understand it, so he made a bigger one, and that's called Shriyapatipadi, of medium size, also has 3 sections on the Tira Mantra, Charma Sloka, and Dvaya Mantra in that order. Normally we see it in the order Tira Mantra, Dvaya Mantra, and then Charma Sloka in order of size of the mantra. But here he put Tira Mantra first, then Charma Sloka, then Dvaya Mantra last. And we have to read that book to understand why, but there's a reason. And that is a bigger explanation. The only disadvantage of that book, right, if there's any disadvantage at all, is that it has a lot of Sanskrit words more than the Tamil. So it was also very difficult for people to understand. So the first book was very short and people could not understand. It was very esoteric. Everybody couldn't understand it. The second one had a lot of Sanskrit terminology and people also couldn't understand it, right? So the third book was called Mumukshapadi, which is what we are studying with Dr. Alwan now. So it's sort of like Goldilocks and the Three Bears. One was too hot, one was too cold, and one was just right. So he made a very short one, he made a very terse one, and he made one which was just right. So this Mumukshapadi is known as a very, very easy and best work on the three mantras, right? And it has 3 sections in it, Mumukshapadi. We're going through that now. The first section is about Tirtha Mantra, then Dwaya Mantra, then Charma Sloka, in that order. It has 278 sutras or Churnikas. And it is an unparalleled work in this particular section of 8 works. Later on, Swami wrote, Pillai Lokacharya wrote, defining who is a mumukshu, or a person who wants to attain liberation, and the necessity for understanding the Rahasya Trayam, the 3 secrets for a mumukshu, a person who wants that. He wrote that in the Mumukshapadi. And he blessed us with a, Manavala Mahamuni blessed us with a commentary on that later on. And there are so many other people who have also written commentaries on that. So that is really a great book. And there's lots of commentaries by other acharyas on that. That's why we're studying that now. We're studying it with Dr. Awa, with the commentary of Manavala Mahamuni. The next book after that, so we've gone through 4 books. The next book after that was called Parantapati. Parantapati is indicated in the name itself, right? Was a very long book. And it contains 3 sections on Tirtha Mantra, Dwaya, and Charma Sloka. So again, it was a long book. So he decided to write some shorter books. The next 3 books were Tani Pranavam, Tani Dwayam, and Tani Charama. Okay, so about Tani, about the detail about the Omkara, detail about the Pranava, the syllable Om, detail about the Dwaya mantra, and detail about the Charma Sloka, Krishna's Charma Sloka from Bhagavad Gita, in detail. So the final, so we talked about there were 4, okay, so now we're up to 7 in the first section. So the 8th book, right, was called Sara Sangraham, right? So Alagiya Manavala Peramal Nayanar, who was the younger brother of Pillai Lokacharya, remember? He wrote a book called Acharya Hridayam, which is also considered a very important work. And he said in that book that this last book of his brother was written to explain the greatness of the Dwaya mantra. And though Pillai Lokacharya does convey the greatness of the Dwaya mantra in the Mumukshapadi and some of these other books also, he feels that he has taken the meaning of the Dwaya mantra from the 1,000 prayers of Nam Alwar, called the Tirabai Moli. And he has given that perspective in this book called Sar Sangraham. Sar Sangraham. Okay, so that is the 8 books in the Rahasya Traya section, which is the first section of the 18 books of him. The next section is called the Tattva Traya section, right? So what he did was, I think we're getting very late here. Maybe we should talk about the other 2 sections tomorrow. What do you think? Is there anybody still there? Okay.
But it's super interesting. It's funny.
Yeah, it's interesting, but it's probably getting late for you.
Getting a little late, yeah.
Yeah. So why don't we call it a day here? And we have two more sections.
Okay.
Two more sections about the books. We have another 10 books to talk about, right? Then we're going to talk about the end of his life, and then we can start talking about the particular book that we're interested in, because we'll know all about his life and all about his books, and then we can do that. So just one more day,
Okay.
and we should be able to start. Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm going to just unshare now, and okay. So it's a little difficult for me because this is a tough subject, and I'm not qualified to teach it. But at least I'm trying to get you the basics of this, and it involves a lot of Sri Vaishnava jargon and terminology, and you have to know the history and the acharyas and all the names and the Tamil and whatever it is. And so it's sort of hard, especially since I'm not qualified to teach it. But I'm just trying to give you an overview, and you can go over this again. And if anybody has any questions, we can elaborate. But in order to elaborate further than what I'm doing now, I will have to do a little bit more research too, if you really want to know about these other books. I do have Tatpatrayam. I do have some of the others. I was bringing back a great copy of Acharya Hridayam this time, but I had to leave it behind because I had to escape India with only hand luggage. So it was a big book, and I couldn't bring it. So there's many things. And of course, none of us are really well schooled in any of the Prabandhas of the Alwars. So it's difficult for us to understand when they quote from Alwars and when they quote from Purvacharyas like Vimuna and Ramanuja. But this is the quintessence and the culmination of a Guru Parampara. It's like it's all been worked out here. It's the refined essence at the end. So you've got to understand it involves knowing a lot about the tradition to get to this point. So hopefully we just can get an overview, and then we can go to the book, and that'll be more interesting, I think. Yeah. So okay. So why don't we leave it here? And thank you very much, everybody. And I'm also learning a lot by trying to help to present some of these things. Yeah, and I'm sure I've given you versions of Sri Vachanabhushana that you can download and you can look at. And I have several. I have 3 or 4 different versions with me, and elaborations and things. So, and I also studied this as part of my Vaishnavism degree at Madras University, but it's been a long many years since I studied it. So
okay.
Yeah.